Hi, I'm just sitting down to do a little Q&A today. As of June 17th, I have been on BookTube for a whole year pretty regularly. The first few months were a little bit spotty, but after that I have been producing a lot of videos and I'm actually really proud of myself. I stuck with it and I have started making some friends and just editing more quickly, and that has been really a game changer. So I have some questions that people sent me on Instagram or on a YouTube post, and I'm just gonna kind of go through them and tell you a little bit more about me. So there'll be some book stuff in this video, but mostly it'll be about me and my reading and my booktube journey and all of that. And so I guess we'll start with the bookish kind of questions. The first question was, what got me into reading? When I was a kid, I was a big reader, and I don't really know what to attribute that to because I don't think either of my parents were super big readers. My dad did read some, my mom did read some, but not a whole lot. But of course, you know, I loved the library and the book sales and all that. I just have always loved books. And I think it's sort of in my bones, I guess. My great uncle, who is still alive, he is always trying to get me to read East of Eden and Count of Monte Cristo, and he just always has loved writing. And his sister, my grandmother, was actually a pretty well-known poet in New Hampshire. She was actually the poet laureate of New Hampshire for a time, and she was actually pretty widely published. And I think definitely just her love of the written word, and you know, she was always like fostering everyone's love for books. She was not always the most warm or nurturing grandmother in the world, but I definitely look at her as someone who went through a lot growing up, and she just was able to do some pretty amazing things with her life considering what happened in her childhood. Her mom passed away of cancer when she was, I think, 7 or 8 years old, and then her father killed himself, and so she ended up living with her aunt and, you know, just people that weren't her parents. And just the fact that she was able to develop and grow into this poet is pretty amazing. And she wasn't the most motherly person in the world, but still definitely, like, I can look back and appreciate things that she contributed to me. And I just have some of her books here. So these are all poetry collections of hers. So there's quite a few. And I think her most, this is just her greatest hit someone put together. She passed away in 2021, I think. It was sucky. And this is one of her, I think, I think this is one of the only ones that was widely distributed, like in Barnes & Noble and bookstores and things. And what's interesting about this is that it was forwarded by Mary Oliver, which they were friends. They wrote letters back and forth. So it's just really cool. In the poetry world, Mary Oliver is huge. I think people who don't even read poetry know Mary Oliver. And so, yeah, it's just really interesting. You know, I definitely didn't appreciate her poetry as much when when I was younger. There's a lot of like very serious themes in them, and it's just definitely not something that for me I related to a whole lot as a kid. But I remember just reading them and still really thinking they were beautiful. And she wrote a poem for us for our wedding and recited it at our wedding, so that was really nice. We have a picture of that hanging up. And so yeah, I think just her being so involved in writing and the spoken written word got me even more into reading. And she actually gave me a book. I don't know if I can, really old book. This book is Jexam Island. I don't even know. And this is a really old book. You can't find it anymore. This is actually, like, if it was in better shape, would probably be worth some money because it's a first edition and it's signed. But I read this and I absolutely loved it. And it's a kid's sort of, not really fantasy, but it's the story of a brother and a sister, an adopted brother and a sister who end up on this island, and they have to do manual labor to get this resource. I don't even remember what it is. I think they call it Jexam. So, and if they don't, you know, they have to buy all these things with their payments at the store, and it's just, you know, child labor. But it's actually really interesting, and I remember really loving this. So this is one of the early books that she gave me and really loved. She was always open to giving me books for sure. And I was just going to read you one of her poems really quick. This one's called Going. Going. The children walk off into crowds of strangers. Their laces are tied, their backs straight. They wave at you from platforms you cannot reach. You want to hang on, running after them. You thrust out small packages, vitamins, a new blouse, guilt, but they keep discarding your dreams for their own. They carry admonitions in their pockets, and their children will sing your lullabies, so that finally, knowing this, you let go. They fade, they blur, fade, you settle back. The years pass, silent as clouds. Sundays, they come over for dinner, serve up slices of their lives, but it's not the same. Sometimes, in a crowd, you will catch a glimpse of long braids, a ribbon streaming, and you'll remember, a head beneath your hand, a quilt tucked in, small things snapping on a line. So it's just, about the children growing up, and mine are growing up now. I have a 15-year-old and, well, almost 15-year-old and an almost 12-year-old. So definitely can relate to that one now. So that is probably where my original love of reading came from. And then I got kind of more into it in high school. And then in college, as many do in early motherhood, I didn't read as much. I would read a book here and there, not pick up a book for several months, pick up one or two. And then in 2020 with the pandemic, I fell in love with audiobooks because my only me time was out running, and I would get an audiobook and go for a really long run, and it was just kind of cathartic for me. And I was reading more. My neighbor was giving me a book or two. I was grabbing books from friends and things, and I was just kind of reading whatever because I hadn't been in the reading game for so long that I really didn't know what I liked and what was out there now. My friend gave me the Soldier Son trilogy by Robin Hobb. During the pandemic, she had all the trade paperbacks, and I blasted through all three of these. I really, really liked those. That was the first Robin Hobb I had ever read from. And then in 2024, I decided that for a New Year's resolution, I wanted to read every single day, whether it would be 10 pages or 50 pages or 100 pages or whatever. And it sort of snowballed from there. And in 2024, I read over 400 books. And it was just one of those things where I started reading more, trying to figure out what to read. So I found BookTube, started watching BookTube, and started adding infinite books to my TBR and getting involved in the community and commenting on things, becoming Patreon patrons for some of my favorite booktubers, and, just snowballed from there, getting all my bookshelves. I had no bookshelves here prior to 2024. My kids had all their toys and things here, and as they're getting older, we cleared that out, and now I have my own little area here with all my books and my computer. So yeah, like I said, 2024 just kind of snowballed into my obsession as it is now. One of the questions was what's your favorite genres to read from? My favorite genres are definitely horror, fantasy, and like a paranormal, which kind of falls into the horror fantasy category. Those are definitely my favorite genres. Horror is my bread and butter. I am more likely to keep horror and fantasy on my shelf above all else. I still do like lit fic a whole lot, depending on what it is. I like some weird stuff, weird girl lit fic as well. But I read a little bit of everything, a little bit of horror, a little bit of romance, a little bit of literary fiction, even throw a historical fiction in there sometimes, not as much, but once in a while I will do that. Let's see. Someone asked me what my favorite books of all time are, and that's a hard question, of course, for any reader because your mind immediately goes blank. But the ones that immediately come to mind are anything by Poppy Z. Brite, especially Drawing Blood, especially Lost Souls, but also Drawing Blood. I need to reread this one. I actually reread this, I think, in January, and it definitely is all nostalgia for me. Like, there are definitely things in here, criticisms that people have of it. Totally understand. Totally get it. But for me, this is very nostalgic. I reread this so many times in high school, I can't even tell you. I read it for the first time in 8th grade. This is a queer vampire book. The writer is a trans man and still is using Poppy Z. Brite as a pen name. It was a pen name to begin with anyway. But yeah, so this is just my original, favorite book. So this is the one I always give people. It's sort of my horror roots in the adult sphere of things. And then I would say also some of my favorites are the Vampire Chronicles. My favorite, I think, is the Vampire Stat, and then Queen of the Damned. Interview, it's fine. I still like it. And I actually really like Tale of the Body Thief as well. Memnoch the Devil took it down a notch for me. And then I didn't continue the series after that. I tried with Armand a few times, but I just couldn't get into it, and so it didn't happen. So these definitely are some of my favorite. Anne Rice and Poppy Z. Brite both started my obsession with New Orleans, and just the vibes and the settings in these books are just so good. I love them. And then lastly, which also takes place sometimes for some of the time in New Orleans, is the Discovery of Witches, the first trilogy. I listened to all three of these in 2020 on my long runs, and I fell in love with these. So definitely, those are some of my favorite books. Oh, someone asked me what some of my best books of the year so far are, but yeah, some of my best books of the year so far, I don't want to grab them, but I'll put screenshots up of them. Where I End by Sophie White is way up there, very bleak, but definitely left an impact on me. I'm still thinking about The Rope and The Cliff and the ending of that one. The Dumb House, which I just read, I forget who that is by, but John Burnside, maybe? That one is also very bleak and is about a sociopath who experiments on his children. And then the other one that came to mind was Ninth Reign as a new favorite fantasy series. Of course, I've only read the first one, but I started the second one and I'm really, really loving that one. So those three. And then probably my most disappointing or my lowest rated books of the year, I wouldn't say they're horrible books, they just didn't work for me, was The Macabre by Kosoko Jackson. That was sad because I really wanted to like that one, and the premise and the cover and everything were so cool. American Spirits by Anna Dorn just didn't work for me, and I was sad because I've liked from Anna Dorn before. And then Grace by A.M. Shine. He wrote The Watchers, and I loved The Watchers. I thought it was fun and compulsively readable, and then this one just kind of let me down. So those are three that I rated kind of lower this year. Reading habit. I don't know if I have a weird reading habit. Sometimes we'll walk around the house and read. I don't think any of those things are really that weird though. I do read several books at a time usually. Sometimes I will be reading 3 to 5 books at a time, and when I get sick of one, I switch to another. I don't think that's that weird though. I think my weirdest reading habit is just how much I read, and people think I'm weird because of how much I love books and I watch very little TV. And that goes into the next question, which was, what are your favorite TV shows? And I would say those are also nostalgic because I don't really watch a whole lot of TV lately. I did go through a reality show time when my kids were little because I couldn't watch a whole show at once, or I like to have something on in the background, or I would put like earbuds in when I was playing with the kids and like listen to a podcast and things. But I just don't watch almost any TV at all. We actually got rid of most of our streaming services. We just have Netflix and Amazon Prime now. So I just don't have access to a lot of it. And even when I do, I just don't binge shows like I used to. So that's why I read so much. But some of my favorite shows, nostalgic shows, are Buffy the Vampire Slayer, of course. I was in 7th grade when the first episode of Buffy aired. So I watched it as it came out because I'm old, and loved it so much, and it definitely had a big impact on me. I've rewatched it so many times. Gilmore Girls, of course, I've rewatched a bajillion times. It's just such like a homey feeling, nostalgic feeling. I really love True Blood, but I actually really love the book series of that as well, which I read, I think the 6th one-ish when I started was out, so I started reading all of them, and I actually have the box set of that as well, the Sookie Stackhouse series. So I love those 2 shows. Those are what come to mind right off the top of my head. As far as movies, The Labyrinth was a big one. I still love that one. I still love the music from that one. I was like weirdly attracted to, you know, the Goblin King, and it just made me feel like, what's going on there? I just loved him so much, even though he was the evil entity in that movie. Still loved him. I loved the old Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I was obsessed with that one as a kid. And let's see, Nightmare on Elm Street is my favorite slasher, 80s slasher. I watched Freddy vs. Jason in theaters, and I don't remember if I went with my husband or my high school boyfriend, but I just remember whoever I was with being like, shh, because I was laughing so much. It's just so campy and fun, and I love it. And it's just something so terrifying about someone who can get you in your dreams, right? Oh no, another old one is The Company of Wolves. And this is a really weird old, I think 80s, early 90s movie. It's a play on Red Riding Hood, but there's like werewolves involved and weird kind of like, it's not erotic, but just like erotic vibes. And I love that movie. If you go on YouTube and look up a trailer for it, you'll see what I mean. It's a weird one. Yeah. And oh, recently I watched and loved Abigail, which is the child vampire movie. And I just love that one so much. It was like so fun and campy and bloody. And then the little cameo with, I forget what his name is, but he is the man who plays Matthew in The Discoverer of Witches, and he's also, his name is Matthew, the actor's name is Matthew, forget his last name, and he has a little cameo at the end, and I just thought it was so fun. It just cracked me up. I would watch that one again for sure. I definitely prefer my horror a little weird and a little campy. Like, I'm not, like I said, I don't really watch a whole lot anymore. I'm trying to think of if there are any more horror-y favorites for movies, but those are like the first two that came to mind. If someone asked what my educational background is, I actually, like, I don't know if people know this, I'm a stay-at-home mom. I have a 14-year-old and 11-year-old, but their birthdays are in a couple of weeks, and my kids are older now. But previous to that, in another life, I was a teacher. I taught pre-K, I taught first grade, and I taught for about 5 years, and then I had my son and decided to stay home, and then I had my daughter, so I still stayed home. And then she was in kindergarten in 2019 and 2020. We all know what happened there. And I was like, well, now I'm never going back because it was just, the schools were crazy. Yeah, I'm just very fortunate that my husband is able to support the family without an income from me. And so I've decided to just stay home, and who knows, maybe I'll get a job at like a part-time job at the library or the local bookstore, or go back to substitute teaching, although I don't think I would ever do it unless maybe high schoolers, because like, I just don't think I could deal with the young children anymore. I really do feel like I had a talent and like a passion for the little guys, but I always wanted to be a mom, so I guess that made sense. But then once I became a mom, I'd rather deal with my own kids and their friends. Like, I love having their friends over and, you know, just being a mom. I just love just being a mom. It's my thing. And now I have this, which gives me a creative outlet and just makes it so that I'm always learning, always reading, always kind of doing something. And it has really kind of made it so like I'm not bored at all. Like, I read so many books, I run, I go outside and kayak, I hang out with my dogs, I spend time with my kids, my husband and everything. So there's lots to do around here, keep the house clean, whatever. And yeah, I'm not bored. But previous to that, I did teach, and my education background was, I graduated in 2006 because I'm old, and I got my bachelor's in early childhood education and psychology. I got my master's in reading language arts, because as a teacher in this country, you have to have a master's degree at some point, which is crazy because, yeah, we want our teachers to be educated, but like, we pay them shit, so master's educated. I'm a master's educated mother. But that's okay. So yes, I do have that reading language arts background, but it was really more in the realm of having to do with kids and teaching them to read. And we also did studies on like children's books, children's literature, things like that, but nothing with adult lit at all. It was just like young adult and lower with the reading language arts. But I did love getting my master's. I don't want to go back. I don't want to write papers and things, but I just always love learning now. So yes, I have my master's degree in reading language arts. What else? Someone asked what my sign is. My sign is Sagittarius. My birthday is December 7th. I actually don't know my rising, waning, whatever. I'm not really that into that, but I don't know what time I was born, to be honest. I think it was in, I don't know. My mom's always like, I can't remember which one you were, what time you were. And so, but I can't say anything because I don't remember what time I had my kids. One was in the evening, which was my son, and one was in the late afternoon, I think. And that was my daughter. But yeah, I don't remember. So yeah, I'm a Sagittarius, which I believe is a fire sign. I don't really feel like I'm very Sagittarius-like. My husband is also a Sagittarius, and we're both very, I would say I'm definitely more adventurous than him. Like, I would love to travel and all that, but only if I had someone to do all the work for me, and he's not a traveler. So how I got into running, my dad is actually started running in his 40s, like my age, and he ran his first marathon after his 40th birthday, and then he ended up running 10 marathons in his life before he kind of had to stop because he got some medical diagnoses and he just had to stop. But So that is really the person who inspired me to start running. My mom also ran marathons. This is not, I don't want to leave her out. She ran 5. But my dad was kind of the one pushing me to do it after I started running. So in 2017, I had some false starts with running. I ran a little bit in college, just for myself. And I did a 5-mile race in college. And I found out I had bad feet. I had falling arches. I had an extra bone in my foot that was causing me pain running. And I had to get good orthotic inserts and all that rigmarole. Then I started student teaching and I didn't have time and I just sort of fell out of the habit. And then in 2017, my daughter was not even, she was 2 when this happened, and I kind of had sort of an anxiety breakdown of sorts. That's dramatic. It wasn't that bad, but I was just having a really hard time all of a sudden. And I got on medication and all of that, but I just remember I lost like a ton of weight because I had no appetite at all. And that was really hard. That never happened in my life. Like I was still carrying like probably 5 to 10 pounds of baby weight at the time, and it just like fell off of me. I'm like, what is going on? I had to force myself to eat. Once the medication and stuff kind of got sorted, I was like, I need to exercise. And when you have little kids, it's really hard because you got to get them to do it with you, and then it doesn't turn out into exercise, or you have to do it before they wake up in the morning. And so I was like, I'm gonna move my body every day in September. And we had an elliptical at the time. My mother-in-law gave us her elliptical, and every day I was like, whether it's a walk, something, I'm going to do it. And I did, and I actually have not stopped since. So that has been excellent. I started by just like moving my body. And then I think in October, I was like, I want to do couch to 5K. I want to start running again. So I started doing couch to 5K. I would do it with my daughter too. I got a jogging stroller, because at the time she was like 2. No, she was just turning 3. So she was a little heavy in the jogging stroller, but I would take her with me sometimes when I needed to. She started going to preschool in the morning, so I would work out sometimes when she was at preschool. And then towards the end of October, beginning of November, I joined the CrossFit gym, and I got really, really strong. It was a lot. I was doing a lot, and I also was doing hot yoga and everything. So we'll go back to running though. So I started running, and then I did my first 10K that spring, 2018. And my dad's like, well, now that you've done a 10K, why don't you just double it and do a half marathon? So in the fall of that year, we did Hartford Half, and that was with my dad, and that was really awesome to run that half marathon. We did it, the whole thing, completely walk run, 2 minutes running, 1 minute walking. We still finished in under 2.5 hours. And that was an amazing experience. It was cold, it was rainy, but it was a good experience to run it with my dad. And then of course, after that, he said, well, why don't we just double it and do a full marathon? And I said, you know, the only way you're going to get me to run a full marathon. And he goes, we're going to do the Disney Marathon. And I said, okay. So in 2020, we ran the Disney Marathon, and it was before everything happened. It was January. Yeah, so I ran that one, and it was really exciting. And then I was like, the pandemic happened, so there were no races for a while. Since then, I have done 10 marathons, 1 ultra 50-mile race, and I think 17 or something half marathons. So lots of running. You know, I worked from the ground up. I was not someone who was physically fit at all. And, you know, now I stopped doing the CrossFit. Hot yoga closed because of the pandemic. CrossFit I stopped going to because of the pandemic, and then I just never got back into it. But the one thing that has stuck with me is the running. It's just been the best for my mental health. I don't have to talk to anybody. I don't have to deal with anybody. I just go out and run. I've had some setbacks. I've had some injuries, especially while I was doing CrossFit. Stereotypically, I had some injuries, but I was very proud of myself to be able to go to physical therapy, still move my body in if I could, whatever way I could, while I was injured, and fight my way back from injuries. I mean, I've had to go to physical therapy a couple of times. Now my legs are so adapted to running. I don't know if that is ever going to be the case. I've had setbacks with my health and things, but I just still get out there and run 4 days a week minimum, sometimes 5 days a week. I've taken a step back now from I was never fast, but I've taken a step back now from racing for a bit because like I said, I started running in 2017. Yeah, that sounds about right. And it's crazy that it's been almost 10 years now. It's been 9 years and I've run so many races. So I just feel like I need a little break, and it's not something that I need now to motivate me. I don't need a race on the calendar to motivate me to get out there and run. And some of the longer miles were definitely starting to take a toll on my body, even though I loved them. So I might do it again, but we'll see. Oh, dog questions. I have 2 dogs. You'll see them in the videos. I have a pug. Her name is Ellie. She's 6. And I have a Black Lab Bernese Mountain Dog mix, and she is also 6. We got them at the same time in 2020. We were looking for a dog because our Boston Terrier passed away in April of 2020. Kind of hard to find dogs then because everyone wanted a dog, and the rescues were empty, and people weren't traveling to get the new dogs down south and bring them up. So we ended up finding a pug breeder and getting our pug, and our Bernese Mountain Dog Lab mix was an oops litter from a breeder that we knew because my aunt breeds Bernese Mountain Dogs. Well, she's bred out her dog a few times, and she knew this breeder, and she knew I was looking for a dog. And the breeder called me up. She's like, I don't know if this is what you want. I'm like, that's perfect. We'd love a mixed breed dog. We don't care. And she's just the best dog ever. Both her parents are award-winning ribbon dogs, and she's just a love, and we love her so much. So those are our 2 doggos. Oh, why did I start YouTube? Because I was so involved in the community and just like in everyone's comment sections, and I loved reading so much, and I was like, well, I want to be able to put myself out there and have people get to know me too. So I decided to start. I started with a color wheel spinning video because I was on Jan Agaton's Patreon. So there was just a weekend readathon vlog I just put out there. And another question is, what have you learned? And I would say I've learned a ton about just the mechanics of how to do this, and it's gotten easier every time I've done it. Easier to talk to the camera, editing's become a lot easier. Just everything was such a labor in the beginning to do, but the more I did it, the easier it's getting. So I'm sure it'll continue to get easier. And yeah, just like the technology stuff, like it's all stuff that I kind of knew how to do already, but it was just such a slow process in the beginning to figure everything out. And it's definitely gotten so much easier. As far as like learning when it comes to the content that I'm putting out there, it's more like I'm just kind of doing what I want to do. I have an idea or a goal like that I want to put out, and if it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I think it helps that I'm older. I'm in my early 40s, and I just don't really care what people think all that much anymore. And so I think that just helps. And I think putting yourself out there, not caring so much about what other people think. Oh, has making content impacted what you're reading? I would say a little bit, but that's more because if I'm participating in a readathon, I am kind of letting that dictate more of what I'm reading because of the prompts for that. And occasionally I will do like a themed vlog, which is not something I would do. I've been better at reading my NetGalleys, which has been good for the Ready, Set, Net. So like, yes and no, I would say. I still feel like I'm pretty much reading what I want. I read so much that it's easy to like, take a week worth of books that I want to do for a vlog and then still have a lot of time for my own reading. But yeah, I don't really think it's affected what I've been reading too much. If anything, I would expect that I would be reading less, but so far that hasn't been the case. In 2005, I read 300 and something books, and then so far this year, I think I've read 149, so slightly less, but not a whole lot less, and I don't think that that'll be the case. I don't know. And if I read less, I'm okay with that. Like, I'm spending time making content too, so it's gonna be a trade-off. But anyways, happy 1-year BookTube-a-versary to me. I hope you enjoyed going on this journey with me. And if you did, please like, subscribe, and comment down below. I don't know if anyone is really interested in hearing about myself, but now you know some of this information. Please like leave me a comment down below if there's anything else you want to know about me. And I will see you next time. Bye.